Hey there guys, how's it going, and welcome to my top 30 reasons Call of Duty Ghosts suck. Now, as you could probably guess from my top 5 reasons Call of Duty Ghosts rock video, I didn't really like Call of Duty Ghosts very much. It wasn't absolutely terrible, but I didn't think that it warranted 5 things that were really great about the game. I like the hit detection, but for me there's a lot of things that are a big problem with this game. But I have to admit, this is just from my personal viewpoint in terms of the kind of COD I like to play, and I know a lot of people agree with me. Of course, there's going to be some people out there who Call of Duty Ghosts is a solid game. It does have some redeeming features, but I just want to use this video to really just let out of my system everything that I've found frustrating and annoying about this game. I mean, me and other YouTubers and people spend a lot of time playing Call of Duty really were frustrated by this one. There's a lot of things that they just did not get right, so I'm using this opportunity to flush out my system all of the problems, which is why I've gone for 30 things, which is a little bit over the top, but you know, Advanced Warfare around the corner. Let's just come out with everything that I disliked about it, and this might be a bit of a long video guys, but I'll try and get through my reasons as quick as possible. So without further ado, let's get on with my top 30 reasons Call of Duty Ghosts sucked. To start off, the game mode grind was never put into public playlists, so I played this event at a private recording opportunity and it was a great game mode. It's also available in private match. I've got no idea why it wasn't included. It's kind of like a kill confirmed mixed with domination game mode, kind of capture the flag actually. It's almost like a great mix of lots of different game modes. It was never put into public lobbies. I've got no idea why, and that didn't help the game in my opinion. Next up, there was no capture the flag in this game by default or search and destroy. The fact that they brought search and destroy into the game just goes to show what an oversight that was. People were basically outraged that it wasn't in there, and it's needed for competitive. You know, Call of Duty needs a search and destroy, more strategic style objective game mode, and capture the flag, it would have been nice to have that just as an option. I understand Blitz is quite decent, and I did have some fun playing that, but I feel like capture the flag should have been in there by default as well. There are some random game modes people don't really play. Why are they in and capture the flag's not in? I don't understand. Next up, I found the sniping dull, and I found the snipers dull and boring. They weren't fun to use, they didn't look good, they didn't sound good, and in general just did not enjoy sniping in this game. Next up, Ghillie Suits. Ghillie Suits should be for snipers in my opinion. People just used them to hide and as camouflage, and they were very annoying to play against. Another thing I disliked was the unlock system. I don't like the idea that if you've got enough squad points you can unlock whatever you want in the game, apart from camos, which we'll go into later on. I like the idea of having to unlock something once you reach a certain level. It just took all the fun out of ranking up in the game. I had no real reason to rank up, because I could pretty much, after the first prestige, unlock whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. They made a bit of a mistake thinking that people would actually want to unlock everything, and it just kind of messed up the whole unlock system, in my opinion. Now, talking about guns, assault rifles were too dominant in this game, in my opinion. This game obviously kind of rewards defensive style play. The Remington and the AK and some of the other assault rifles are just too strong when compared to the other weapons, and it really messed up weapon balance. Next up, poor graphics and user interface. For me, for a modern day game that came out in 2013, also on the current gen now, which was the next gen of consoles, this is not a very good looking game. The textures are average, the lighting effects are kind of meh, okay, there's no real dynamic lighting, there's no richness to the graphics. Graphically, it's very average, especially for the time, and I'd expect a bit more from a Call of Duty game. And the user interface just looked boring. It was like all white, everything. There was no real colour. It looked plain, it looked amateurish to me, and it looked kind of not finished in a way. Next up, InstaDeaths. We know that with connection problems mixed with extremely powerful assault rifles and Deadeye, you would get InstaDeaths in this game quite a lot. I mean, it happens in Call of Duty. You get bad connections, you die a bit quickly, but in this game, sometimes people wouldn't even be looking at me and I would be dead. If I go back and record my footage and I count the frames in between them looking at me and me dying, there's less frames that actually happen in game than are physically possible for them to be able to kill me. This is just the trademark of a bad connection and a badly built game. Next up, support streaks. I've never really been a fan of support streaks in a Call of Duty game, and the fact that you had SATCOM, ballistic vest, the launcher, ground jammer, support squad mate, and of course the Oracle in support just really spoiled it, especially with the other support, the other streaks packages that weren't really that great either. It just made these a really obvious option and they were used way too much. So along the same lines, one of the reasons that a lot of people end up using these annoying support streaks is that assault streaks were very boring and would hardly get you any kills. If you compare how difficult it is to get some of those assault streaks compared to the support streaks, it really isn't a viable option most of the time. People who like to get score streaks and assault streaks just had no fun using them. They ended up using very low score streaks like the dog and the sentry gun. This is just not something people who want to get lots of kills should be going for. It just made it boring, and then it kind of messed up the balance, and a lot of people, than they should have, ended up just going for those annoying support streaks. Also, Specialist was quite weak. Specialist wasn't quite what it was in Modern Warfare 3. In Modern Warfare 3, that was a lot of fun. All of the perks, all of the weapon proficiencies as well. And in this one, not only were some of the perks a lot more underpowered in this game, which you could say was a good thing, but because there were so many of them that you had to choose quite a lot to get any kind of decent setup going. So even with support, you didn't really feel that strong of a soldier once you got on your streak. Bearing in mind you'd have to go on a 7, maybe up to 10 or more kill streak to get all of those unlocked. You really should have had a much better kind of soldier once you'd hit that point, rather than what you had when you used support streaks in Call of Duty Ghosts, which was kind of an okay soldier. It really wasn't strong enough in my opinion and wasn't that fun to use. Another thing that I disliked is the fact that the Chem Strike made all the maps look horrible. It brought down this brown foggy mist that made it near impossible to see people and made you not want to bring in your Chem Strike. It's all very well something not ending the game like the nuke did in Modern Warfare 2, but what's the point when you bring in the Chem Strike, the game looks horrible, you're not going to be able to get any more kill streaks really because it's going to be so difficult to see people. I have no idea why the Chem Strike, they thought it would be a fun idea to make the map look really brown and dull and difficult to see. Can't do this list without mentioning the M27 Thermal sight, a laser beam of a weapon, extremely high damage, rewards slow movement and extremely great range, and this just really encouraged people who want to use that defensive playstyle to pick up this weapon. We all know those M27 Thermal users, they're an absolute pain to play against, they really spoil the experience for a lot of people. Of course you can say it's in the game, that's just how you play it, and if you are an M27 Thermal user who likes to sit at the back of the map, great, then COD Ghosts is the game for you. But for most of us who enjoy playing Call of Duty Ghosts, you know, an action-packed FPS game that's fun to play, it really is an annoying thing in the game and just encourages the poor playstyle. Again, this moves on to my next point, is just defensive players. The whole game really encouraged defensive players, and if you are a very defensive player, then maybe you would have some fun in Ghosts, but for most people, that's not really the fun. I think that's one of the reasons that so many people stopped playing Call of Duty Ghosts, is because most people just wanted to run around and have some fun, and it really didn't reward that, and there was just so many defensive people when you played online. It really just, if you don't enjoy just standing in a corner, camping it out and being very slow paced, you didn't really have much fun playing the game. Next up is no theatre mode. I really feel like a Call of Duty game should have theatre mode. Of course, I'm biased. I like to have theatre mode. I like to go back and watch my gameplays. If I forget to record one, I can record one. Also, if there's I can use different camera angles to do different things. Now, I will actually submit that if it does make connections significantly worse, then okay, maybe not. But I really don't believe that it really has that much of an impact that you cannot put it in the game in some form. So for me, that's a personal reason why I thought the game sucked. Next up, the very weak SATCOM system, the UAV system. It just didn't really work. What it meant is that nobody really ran UAV, or should I say SATCOM. You didn't get much UAV in the air, and in maps that are already quite big and very slow paced, if you have no UAV in the air most of the time as well, it makes it extremely slow paced and boring to play. So if they just made the UAV just a standard sweep at 3 kills, I really thought that that might have quickened up the gameplay a little bit. But it didn't. It was overly complex, not enough people used it, and it just kind of spoiled the flow of the game again. My next point is the attack dogs. They weren't particularly too strong in terms they wouldn't get you tons of kills, but they were just badly programmed and implemented. If you saw this dog, you were practically dead. It was very difficult to shoot down. Once you got within about 10 or 5 to 10 yards of you, you were dead. Instantly dead. It had an instant travel time. Invincible. You couldn't kill it. In a modern game that is really renowned for, its hit detection, this game, one of the best things about it was the hit detection, and it's the only thing I mentioned in the reason that it rocked. Why do the dogs not work? The dogs work in single player games. They work in Call of Duty single player previously. They don't have that instant lunge where you're dead and you can't defend yourself. I just don't understand why that couldn't have been implemented better so that they weren't quite as indefensible. Another thing that annoyed me about Call of Duty Ghosts was just the kind of tacky, stupid DLC that they had. And I don't mean the maps. The maps were kind of decent and the extinction modes were good. But I'm talking about all that bonus DLC, you know, Space Cats camo, astronaut suits, Snoop Dogg voiceover packs. It's just tacky, it's just cheap, it makes Call of Duty a lot less cool. I mean, can you imagine Snoop Dogg voiceover pack in Call of Duty 4? No, that was a cool game, it had a cool theme, and that just would have been tacky. And for the sake of just selling a few more packs, I think they should have gone for some more cool things. Even like more military themed stuff would have been cool, or more realistic things. But to just have all these ridiculous camos and things when you've got such bad camos in the game anyway, just made it a bit of a joke, in my opinion. It just made the game a bit more, you know, difficult to take seriously. I couldn't do this countdown either without mentioning the stupid fish AI thing. Obviously, before the game came out, in one of the trailers, one of the developers of the game said, "Oh, now we have the technology for fish to move out the way when you swim." Absolutely ridiculous. They then tried to pull it off as if the guy was only joking and they were doing it as a parody, but I don't believe that for a second. Watch it. He means it. He honestly thinks that a fish moving out of the way while you're swimming is some sort of next generation AI that they have implemented and that will be the ultimate realism in gaming. And that just goes to show, you know, some of the developers just did not have a clue what was going on. Next up is the bad camos. Obviously, camos is a big deal for me. I love unlocking things. I love achieving things to get things that are prestigious, like cool camos. You would do a freaking 100 lean kills with a submachine gun just to get really boring, dull-looking camo. I can't think of any of the default camos off the top of my head, apart from maybe Scale that was okay, that were particularly decent looking. In previous CODs, you had, you know, Red Tiger and things like that, which were kind of nice looking. In Black Ops, you had some nice default camos as well. Black Ops 2 especially, and in this one all of the camos that were unlocked by default were dull. And that moves me on to my next point, which is the gold camo. The gold camo was extremely annoying to achieve and it looked terrible. It just looked really dull. It looked like it had been painted on. It looked rusty. Why not just give us a nice, shiny, bright, good looking gold camo once we've actually grinded all the way out to get that camo? I'm not sure why they did that. Obviously it can't be that difficult to implement a nice looking camo. They just thought that their weird kind of rusty looking gold camo looked good for some reason. And also that goes into the point of achievements to get gold camo. The achievements were ridiculous. 50 point blank kills with a sniper. Like, are you serious? Why do I have to completely change my game style to achieve this? Headshots I don't mind too much, but when it's things like point blanks and lean kills and crouch kills, honestly, crouch kills? Who made this up? Who thinks that people go around crouching in Call of Duty? Like, yeah, sometimes you will be crouched when you get a kill, but I don't want to get 50 odd crouch kills. That's just stupid. Anyway, moving on to the next point. My next point is the fact that there was no League play. League play was in Black Ops 2, it was very good, it was very popular, and Call of Duty Ghosts just didn't have it. I don't see, you know, why it shouldn't have something similar at least, and I think for the next Call of Duty, you should never really not have features that were very successful in the past one, so no League play was a bit of a downer for me. Next, I'm going to mention the lean kills. I know they go under kind of stupid challenges for camo, but lean kills were just pointless. No one used it apart from people who are die-hard on getting the camos. I got a lot of guns gold in this game, so I got a lot of lean kills, and I can kind of see how it's useful sometimes, but I just think this is another kind of sign that people who develop this game don't really play the game. They're not really the players. People don't want to lean and stand still and watch a corner in Call of Duty. Maybe in a more tactical shooter, of course, but especially a console game, leaning is just not needed, and it was really kind of talked up as one of these amazing new next-gen movement features, and it was just something no one wanted and no one really implemented. Next one is a big one, and this is the fact that obviously IEDs were in the game. Very powerful explosives, very difficult to spot and very hard to defend against. Too strong really, very much in favour of anyone who wants to sit in a corner and camp. Anything that is like that for me is kind of annoying. You could say they had a counter, and for me personally, I used to like running sit rep as a counter, but they just really shouldn't be in the game. A claymore maybe, it's a bit more visible, especially the fact that there wasn't an EMP in this game. The 9 bang would turn into an EMP MP effect if you held it for a while, but no one ended up doing that. So IEDs were just rampant. It forced you to use sitrep. I don't really like a game where you end up being forced to use certain perks just because certain things have been implemented which promote a really strange play style. I also actually said to one of the developers of the game before the game came out, these IEDs are really annoying, and they just laughed at me and said, yeah, they are. And that was actually a developer of the game, so that's all I've got to say about that. Next up, field orders, pointless things again, get some crouch kills, get some knife kills. I'm all for like little challenges, but why not make the challenges things like go cap a flag, get a couple of kills. I don't want to do some crouch kill or some lean kill just to get a random objective. I just didn't really like the field orders. I think they could have been done a bit better than they were. Next up, and I guess this is difficult to say, it's one of the things that sucks, but I feel like it is for good reason, it's the fact that the DLC maps were significantly better than the maps in the game. Obviously the maps in the game were a big problem, and that's going to be my last point, but the DLC maps were so much better that it just annoys me. That's one thing that annoys me about the game, is the DLC maps are significantly better. Let's be honest, anyone who's playing just DLC maps on Call of Duty is normally going to be a very kind of try-hardy player, and for me Call of Duty is a casual game, and you want that kind of casual feel to it. Unless you do play MLG, you play leagues, that's a different thing. That's 4v4, you know, that's competitive gaming. In casual mode, these DLC maps were good, but you didn't have enough people on there. The people on there, of course, were just, you know, try-harder players and very defensive players, which is fine every now and then, but I don't want to play DLC maps because I know not only am I not going to get matched up against those kind of people, there's going to be less people playing as well, and it's frustrating to know that if I don't play DLC maps, the maps I get are a lot less fun. So the fact that DLC content for me is better than the original content is a bit of a problem. Next up, the bad optimization of the game. I've had this game on Xbox 360, Xbox One and PS4, and there is undeniable stutters many times in the game, especially on PS4 and Xbox One even. You would think in a game like this it would run silky smooth. It doesn't look particularly incredible, and it's on some very decent hardware on the latest generation of systems, and yet sometimes I actually think it's probably a network problem rather than a graphical or CPU problem, but you do get stutters in this game. I was playing it the other day and just almost every game at some points it was stuttering a bit. This game should be 60 FPS, smooth as silk, no excuses, especially on the latest gen of consoles, and it just wasn't. Whether that's a graphical CPU problem or it's a network and connection problem, I don't know, but either way, I don't really find that acceptable. My next problem is the fact that it was just a really depressing colour palette. Like maps like Warhawk and Octane, they just look so depressing and brown and boring. And like I said a minute ago, the DLC maps look quite good. The Favela remake, Bayview was a really nice looking map, but most of the maps in Call of Duty Ghosts by default just looked extremely depressing, dull, boring, and I did not like them. I understand not every map should be like crazy looking colours and stuff. I quite like that look, but not every map should be like that. Some of them should be a bit more gritty and realistic, but pretty much every map in Call of Duty Ghosts just seemed dull and boring and really washed out, like Prison Break is another example of that. So I didn't like the colour palette, especially in the default maps. Next up is the fact that there was a bad PC port. Call of Duty really hasn't had a great PC version since maybe COD 4. Black Ops 2 was okay, but the PC version of Call of Duty Ghosts, there was something about it that just felt really rushed and unfinished. It definitely felt like a port, like they'd taken the console version, been like, let's try and put it on a PC. It didn't have a lot of the custom settings that PC users should really have, like the FOV slider. There wasn't many custom graphic settings, and as a PC player, I play a lot of games on PC, and I really like to get my latest games on PC as well, even though I know Call of Duty is normally a good console game, and the PC port was just not good. It was just not very good at all, and for me, not acceptable in current days. I really hope the Advanced Warfare PC version is something a little bit special. So the final and main problem with the game for me is, of course, the maps. Now, a lot of people look at the maps and say, you know, the maps were just bad. But for me personally, I think I've got a lot of reasons why they were bad and why they led to so many other problems in the game. Now, first off, of course, a lot of them were too big. They were just way too big, especially in a game where the UAVs, or should I say the SATCOMs, are a bit funky and you don't actually get that much UAV coverage most of the time. So it slows down the pace because you're not sure where the enemy are so much, you don't run towards them. So they're too too big, that's number one, that's an obvious one, but also it's the verticality and routes to them that means that there's no flow to a lot of these maps. Call of Duty classic maps, if you think back to all of your favourites, they normally have a few kind of routes to go down, either the triangle style or the 3-channel route, and that's great. And then obviously if you want to mix it up a little bit and make it a little bit more interesting, you can have a couple of different routes to go around from there, maybe some ladders to climb, windows to go through, so that you can change up your route slightly to make it a bit more tactical. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't just want one big open map. But the problem is that these ones had so much verticality and so many routes around places. Just think of something like Siege, that when you ran through the middle of Siege, you just had literally no idea where you could be shot from. I could probably point out about 10 different points on a lot of the maps where enemies could possibly be. You really need it so that in a Call of Duty game, at each part you are in at the map, there is only a couple of places you can be shot from, and then you get a good sense, if you've got good game sense, of where the enemy probably are, and you watch those points accordingly. In this game it felt like so often I would run into areas and get shot because I just couldn't technically defend from that many points, you know, and that would make you extremely defensive because you can't run around the map when it's a map where a style you can't get any control of it and there's no flow, and you just take constant deaths, not really through much fault of your own, obviously sometimes it would be, but just the fact that there is no flow to the map. It's too complex, there's too many routes around, there's too much verticality to it. Now there is going to be advanced warfare, a verticality to that, but you're going to be able to jump to those places quickly and it's going to be fast paced. This was a very slow paced game with lots of places for people to shoot you from, and technically that isn't a huge problem, but like I say, it's when you went around the maps there wasn't a good flow to most of these maps, and all of those problems, like when the maps don't have a flow, it encourages the other problems I've talked about, like the overly defensive gameplay, the IED placement, the bad SATCOMs also don't help with this. So for me, the maps is the biggest problem, not just because they're too big, you know, that is the easy thing that a lot of people say, the maps are too big so it was no fun. That is a problem, but like I say, it's just the fundamental design of them meant that they had no real flow, they were too hectic, and that didn't result in a fun experience. And I genuinely think that they were over designed by a lot of people who either don't play a lot of Call of Duty or didn't have a lot of experience in creating FPS maps and haven't created the past ones. Maybe they had some new employees, I don't know. But that is my final, and for me the most important thing that stopped this game being as fun as it could have been. The maps were just poorly designed and obviously too big a lot of the time. So that was a long old list. If you guys did enjoy Call of Duty Ghosts, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it in part, you know, I had some fun times on there, then of course leave comments saying, you know, things that you think should have been in the top 5 things that rocks, or if you think it was even worse than I've described, put more comments down below with what you think sucked about the game. This video took me quite a long time to put together, it took me a long time to think about all these things, so if you wouldn't mind smashing the like button, especially if you've got to the end of the video, I'd really appreciate that. I do put a lot of time and effort into trying to make the kind of videos you guys are going to find interesting and entertaining. Of course, check out my sponsors in the descriptions below as always, and check out these annotations on screen for some more Call of Duty top 5 countdowns as well as other videos. So that's it for now, guys. Sorry this was a long video, but well done to you if you've got to the end here, and I'll see you guys soon.